Okay. Let's say you started recording. A very good afternoon. Now it is afternoon. Afternoon to all. Uh,
Good afternoon, Khuman ji.
yeah, good afternoon.
Should I
So,
briefly introduce you? Although it doesn't need any introduction.
yeah,
Yeah, I have a great pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Y.C. Khuman. He is Assistant Professor in School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies at IGNOU, and he is Program Coordinator for our program, Postgraduate Diploma in Sustainability Science. He has done his PhD from University of Delhi, and he has worked under many experts like Professor Brij Gopal and Professor M.S. Swaminathan, Professor K.S. Rao. So he has expert under many expertises. So, and he is one of the pioneer scientists, growing up scientist for sustainability science. So we welcome you, sir, and you can give your brief presentation on our program, PGDSS.
Who are you, Miss Rita Chauhan? What's your introduction?
yeah. I will
Why?
introduce. I will introduce her. So, thank you, Dr. Rita. Dr.
Yeah.
Rita, she also is the product of from the same school of thoughts. We were trained under Professor Brij Gopal, who is the student, one of the student of Father of Ecology in India, Professor R. Misra. And we are very fortunate to be the grant student of Professor Misra, who promotes this ecology in India. So that is the brief introduction about her, sir. Then she has done extensive work on ecology, ecosystem, especially in that mangrove ecosystem. Now she is assistant regional director at Regional Center Delhi too, and then with her that different experience in ecology, ecosystem, then seed biology. Now she is looking towards education for this environmental education, education for sustainability through distance education, sir. This is brief about our group. So anyway, thanks ourselves to be part of this innovative program, as most of you are from different fields, and most of some of you are already having experience in this line of sustainable science education across the world. And we are lucky to be a part of this, which was established by the Indira Gandhi National Open University under the guidance of renowned, scientists of the world and father of green revolution in India, Professor M.S. Swaminathan, who is established under his guidance, University established the sustainability science in India. Without taking so much time in this introduction, we are going to learn a lot about what is the genesis of sustainability science in India, this brief history, that history about this sustainable science in India in the coming sessions. With the purpose of this session, the reason why we are putting this session as a brief about the overview of PGDSS is, when we are going to attend a course or we are going to learn a program, we do feel that there is a need to understand or discuss a brief discussion before looking into the different steps in the process which we are going to study in different courses in the course of time. Let us have a look into what we can say skeletal, the framework, academic framework, what we are going to study and how we have to study. That's the purpose what we are putting this session, PGDSS, a brief overview. When we talk about sustainability science, we know that most of us who are enrolling in this course, they are interested about lifelong learning of the issues of sustainability. And I assume, and I am sure most of us knows about the genesis of sustainability, how its terms come, and why it is so important on that. But coming back, I mean, going back up to from 1972 onward only, we know that the basic foundation of today's issues or the looking towards a approach of achieving sustainability in global context in general and in when local in particular started in Stockholm conference, right? That was happened in 1972 on that conference on human environment, right? Then later on we have a number of timeline in the timeline, and then we have a number of conferences and protocol like environment education, environment education. Then we have UN Brundtland Commission report. And if we exactly that how education for sustainable development has become one of the important global common efforts with an approach of going to the field, right, and implementing that. That's why how education for sustainable development concept comes, especially after 1992. That is UN Conference on Environment, UN Convention on Environment Development. And that, if you look into one of the output of UNCED, we find that one of the important documents is Agenda 21. Because we are talking about sustainable development since then, even that before we have Stockholm Conference, and we have, as I told you, most of us know that environmental education has become one of the important approach of understanding sustainable development. But the global academic environment, the global the different global organization to feel that we are not able to achieve whatever we are supposed to achieve. That is why we are looking towards education for sustainable development, because only education, for environmental education has some limitation. In the same time, then we are not, when we are talking about in the 70s, we are talking about the environmental degradation. In that time, though we are trying to link with poverty and environmental degradation, but there are some gap in the understanding between the relation between that environment and the issues of sustainability, right? So that's why after Stockholm, that Gro Harlem Brundtland Commission, that is the watershed of sustainable development, evolution. Then we have that UNCED's that approach of implementing even this education for sustainable development. So in that Agenda 20 was chapter 36. Please. Yeah. I'm in the class. So the task to implement those Agenda 21 chapter 36 was given to UNESCO, right? So if you look into UNESCO report of 1997, that's entitled Education for Sustainable Future, that talks about implementing education for sustainable development across all sectors. That's why I use the term, even different reports. We are talking about when we talk about environment education, when we talk about sustainable development, it's not talking about educating only one generation. It's not talking about educating only in a certain sector of the society, certain age group. It is talking about lifelong learning. So the report reorient that about education in all sector, right? And that was one of the reason of that they also pointed out that we need to have celebrate, or we need to focus more on how to that successfully implement and reaching to the unreached about these issues of education for sustainable development. That was one of the reasons we are having UN Decade on Education for Sustainable Development from 2005 to 2014. And in this UN Decade of Education for Sustainable Development, and India also, as I told you, that under the leadership of Professor Swaminathan at IGNOU established Chair for Sustainable Development, and in the direction of United Nations direction towards education for sustainable development, different programs related to education for sustainable development was offered in that time, developed in that time, and this postgraduate diploma in sustainability science is also one of the output of our initiative in that time. And if you look into what exactly the concept of ESD, if you look to the education concept of ESD, it refers, all educational levels. When we talk about environment education, also we started from kindergarten to all lifelong, up to the lifelong learning, irrespective of that age bar, irrespective of population. The same way, the ESD refers to all educational levels from kindergarten to primary, secondary, tertiary, even lifelong learning. That is why today, especially in sustainability science, when I look into that the students' profile from the last few batches, 50% of the enrolled learners are dominated by those group of the people, profession from lifelong learning. Those who are looking in learning, that's for them, their objectives, enhancing their knowledge, right, and to give something to the society, right. So the concept is to promote and improve when we talk about sustainable development, and if you're looking about achieving sustainable development, we have to look all the issues from a holistic approach. So in that way, we know that we have to educate each and every section of the society and every nook and corner of the world about the sustainable development. That is exactly what ESG concept is. And exact definition, that technical definition which was given by UNESCO in 2011 on ESD is education for sustainable development is a learning process or approach to teaching based on the ideal and principle that underlies sustainability and is concerned with all levels and types of learning to provide quality education and foster sustainable human development. Learning to know, this is very much learning to know, right? Learning to be, learning to live together, learning to do, and learning to transform oneself and society. So this definition reflects what is our responsibility when we learn something, like especially in this case of sustainability, right? It is not about learning yourself. It is about extending whatever you learn to wherever possible. It is about practicing what you learn, right? It is about for thinking or implementing or understanding your way of understanding about sustainability to transfer to other people and promote. Practicing that. So this definition reflects all those things. So to achieve these sustainable development, education for sustainable development, two distinct approaches can be looked into. One is, when we talk about sustainability, it's about empowerment. And when we look into empowerment, it's focused on enabling students to become independent, critical thinkers. The second one is, behavior modification perspective, changes in habit. So the reason is that, when we look into issues of sustainability, whatever we are having environmental degradation, whatever the issues we are facing because of the imbalance in nature-society interaction is because of our behavior, because of the way of lifestyle. So that's to, avoid all those things, or to have a change in our lifestyle, to have a change in our behavior, there needs to follow a certain approach, certain basic approaches. That is what exactly this author, Dister have itself proposed these two approaches is one basic approaches in achieving education for sustainable development. So when we talk, as I told you, when we talk about empowerment perspective, the major goal is to enable or help the learners to become an independent critical thinker who consider and engage with society's important challenges both alone and in dialogue with others. That's I told you when we are talking about education for sustainable development, it is not about getting your degree, getting your own job, getting your job, getting your livelihood. It's not only about that. It's about understanding together, going together, learning together, and practicing it. And the second that the approach is behavior modification perspective. As we know that because of human behavior and all these things, the issues of sustainability, degradation because of all these things is because of our human behavior, right? So the goal is, we need to change that. So the goal of this behavior modification perspective is to alter learners' habits in line with or more or less prescribed ideas. The criteria for success and therefore indicator evaluation that parameters differ considerably depending on the perspective, right? So point is that we have to, through this education, that's why we're talking about for kindergarten to lifelong learning, right? You may be in the highly successful professional in particular field, but that field may have gap in understanding sustainability. For example, let us take an example of high-end society, where you are high-end consumptive society, right? Then high-end consumptive lifestyle. So that behavior which have with those society needs to be changed. That's why this kind of behavior modification perspective needs to be followed. Then question comes into is that, for example, I'm taking an example of when you talk about sustainable development or sustainability, different project, program, and then experiment has been done by different organization, institution in their own level, with understanding, for example, microbiology also, then biotechnology also, and all that. But institution or some individual, we are not able to do that hardcore scientific research, social research. Right? What is our responsibility? That's why how to teach sustainability without practicing it. Here, the practice is not a question of what you are doing. It is about some people's or some institution are focusing on finding out an approach. For example, sustainable technology, where, for example, IGNOU, and we are not having such kind of approach. So what we have to do, we have to understand. That's why when we talk about sustainability education, we're trying to compile those success stories. And we compiled it, and we're trying to, give all those messages to reach to the unreached. Right? That is how we can do it. In the same way as individual, we may not be able to do something like those technology. We may not be able to contribute something in terms of knowledge, in terms of financial that contribution. But our responsibility is that at least we will be able to promote those practices, right? That's why institutions play an important role, and here also higher education play an important role. So that is the reason the question comes: why, when we talk of education for sustainable development, whether only environment science will work it? So in the course of time, we learned that benefit and limitation of environment education. As you know, some of you must have been from the discipline of, or you were trained from environment science, like me and our group. We were trained as environment scientists or ecologists. We know the limitation in the sense that our most of the ecologists or scientists' perspective, some of them, they are not and from holistic approach, and sometimes in the same way from the point of social scientists also, there is always a gap. So we need to bring all those experts from different fields and try to understand all the issues related to sustainability from a holistic approach. That's why there is the common question of establishing or developing a new discipline like sustainability science. In fact, it is one of those disciplines, right? As we know that the basic foundation of sustainability science comes study of interaction between nature and society. When we talk about interaction between nature and society, is we know how society depends on nature and what nature is giving. That needs to be looked in holistic from different sectoral approach. Then those sectoral approach needs to be studied from a holistic lens. That is exactly sustainable science playing an important role. So this is some of the, I mean, timeline or whatever what was happened during 1972 to 2020. Right, 1972, as I told you, Stockholm Environment Conference, followed by different IGBP and ISDP and Future R, and these are the timeline which was happened during the last, and that especially 20 last weekends, 30, 30, 40, 50 years. Right, and in fact, we'll come in differentiation about how this discipline was started. I will not go in detail. So, and in the meantime, what we understand after the UNCT, then after UNCT has given UNESCO and task to give tasks of that this responsibility of education for sustainable development in that 1990s onward, the that efforts, international efforts from different and then sectors, especially from academic group of people, started to work in sustainability science as a different discipline to promote this sustainable development, right? So that is one of the output of is our Millennium Development Goals, followed by Sustainable Development Goals, which we are going to learn and then study in different courses, right? So if you look into what exactly the basic foundation of sustainability science, you will find that in today's era of, especially in this decade of achieving sustainable development goals by 2017, and most of the scientists, academics, most of the policymakers, planners, they accepted or they acknowledge this discipline of sustainability science, doctrine of sustainability science is a key approach for achieving SDGs by 2030. And if you look into, especially if you look into goal number 4 that talks about education, right, quality education, that clearly reflect. And if you look into different goals also, you will find out horizontal or vertical, they are interrelated. And you cannot, I mean, see any issues, I mean, it's in that what can be isolated way, right? They are interlinkages. So in that, we need to find out the discipline and tools to study that. That is exactly the sustainable science. So globally, if you look into across the world, you will find out different universities that have developed these sustainable science as a stand-alone or independent discipline. In India, and ours, IGNOU is the first university, and we are also struggling. I mean, to develop this as independent discipline. I'm sure in the coming days, different universities and the University Grant Commission, they may accept it and they will implement it. Few of them that academic who works in this area, they are this paper which I mentioned here. They are from Banaras Hindu University, Institute of Sustainable Development of Banaras Hindu University. They study what kind of education, I mean, a higher education that focus on sustainable development in India. They look into that and they propose 2 models. One is infusion model, another is diffusion model. When we talk about infusion model is what we're talking about, we need to have an independent discipline. That's they're talking about. In case of diffusion model, you know, the issues of sustainability needs to be integrated in the existing discipline. That doesn't mean that, for example, when we talk about infusion model, we are saying that sustainability science has to have different identity. Is it over with that? Whether we have a different identity of sustainable science, is it going to bring a sustainable society? Whether we will be able to achieve our goals of this discipline approach, that will not be possible, right? Whether we have to give education all citizens of sustainable science only, no. So we have different specialized subjects. In those subjects, on those curricula, we need to include in their curriculum framework depending upon, for example, if a student is doing ecological economics, if a student is doing sociology, in that also we need to incorporate these issues of sustainability from the lens of their own discipline. That is so. Those authors, they concluded that the effective utilization of these two models can propel the implementation of sustainable science within Indian higher education for nurturing a future generation of students having sustainability ethos in their words and deeds for addressing the development challenges of India. See, when we talk about this, we're talking about inclusive growth or inclusive development. So when you are finding out a way towards that direction, policymakers also needs to be educated, right? And the planners, then even politicians also needs to be educated. Every stakeholders needs to be educated, right? That is what exactly IGNOU can play an important role in this by introducing this sustainable science, and it is in this direction, as I told you, postgraduate diploma in sustainable science is offering in this IGNOU in different way. One is an online, another is an open distance learning. We know that the objective aim of this program is provide opportunity to the learners to deepen their knowledge and understanding about sustainable development and principle of sustainable science. And exactly what education, the principle of education for sustainable development proposed by UNESCO, that exactly. Then implementation, our understanding as a student of sustainability also, when you talk about that achieving those sustainability, achieving about inclusive growth, achieving about inclusive development, then we need to expand our capacities, right? So we in those different professions who are involved in this process of implementation of those growth model or implementation of that education, implementation in various sectors, their knowledge needs to be updated. There needs to be reorient or retrained on theoretical and practical aspect of sustainable development. In my understanding, most of you also know that the issues of sustainable development, what we used to learn 1980s, is far different from what we are learning today, right? Because of that lifestyle we are having, knowingly we follow those lifestyle. For example, in case of consumptive lifestyle, so most of the underdeveloped countries or developing countries, we want to follow what developed countries is following. So this is a simple example in that way, right? Then, one of the important objective of this program is, we need to develop. When you talk about that infusion model of education, we need to develop, or we need to train a group of young people, right? We can call them as ambassador of sustainability science, right? So that is one of the objective of PGDSS. Those group of highly specialized or highly trained in the area of sustainability science, they will become a professional and a sustainability expert, and whenever, through that, they will be able to implement, monitor, or evaluate sustainable development project and program. So, if you look into the entire skeletal of this program, is we have 7 theory courses and 1 project, right? And these courses, as you know, first we are having the basic foundation of sustainability science, followed by ecosystem, natural resources, then socio-cultural system, ecological, economic, institution, governance, policies. And course 6 is on studies and models of sustainability, 7 is challenges to sustainable development. When we look into the course 1, that is sustainability science, when we talk about sustainability science, is a student as beginners of sustainable development, means in the sense, beginners in the sense, we may have expertise in different fields, right? When we come into, as I told you, when you are a student of this course, you are an ambassador You are one of the product of what the models we're talking about, infusion model. You are going to be the ambassador. So as a beginner, to become an ambassador, we need to have an understanding of how this discipline is started. What are the basic foundation of sustainable development? How sustainability science has to be understood. That is the objective of that first course, right? So this first course, the sustainability science has 4 blocks. Block 1 talks about introduction to sustainable development. When we're talking about sustainability science, the basic foundation of sustainability science is sustainable development. So we need to understand what are its goals, genesis of sustainable development, and what are its goals and dimensions of sustainable development, what are its pathways. After having understanding that, then we have to look towards what actually, how this sustainable science discipline was developed at that basic foundation on sustainable development concept, right? And when we started this, as I told you, and most of you know that sustainable development, what we used to know in 20 years back is there are some, difference, right? Now, when we are looking into sustainability, then we need to understand what we are talking about behavioral change in behavioral approach, and that training some group of young people. It's about, we have to understand social fabrics. And when we are going to maintain the stock of natural resources, right, we have to understand what are the basic human needs require, right? Then on the basis of your basic human needs, then our foundation of sustainability science has to be developed, right? Then when we have an approach, we have developed a model on that, then we have to look into, okay, what are the, how to, look into the progress of the approaches. So the progresses has to be looked into the indicators. That's we are going to have a look into the basic sustainable indicators, how to do that. Then block 3 is approaches to sustainable development. When we talk about sustainable development, we know that dimension is over there, then genesis of sustainability science is there. Then what are exactly approaches? Because we know the theoretical concept, we know how and why the sustainability science was started, right? Then we have to understand what approach has to be followed. Then when we talk about nature-society interaction, it is about natural resource management, right? The issues what we are having today is because of the uncontrolled use of natural resources. So we need to manage natural resource effectively and wisely. And here the question comes, we have to understand the landscape ecology concept. Because when we talk about natural resource management, it is not about saving your that forest. It is not about saving your, improving your soil quality. It is about understanding the linkages of different components, what you have seen in front of you. Because if you go into, for example, even in your own home also, it is not about your own shelter. It is also about your kitchen garden. It is about your lawn. It is about your neighbors. It is about the streets. Right? So we need to understand landscape ecology. Then when we talk about, if you look into broader context, right, we have to understand, especially in India, across the world, watershed management is one of the best approach to bring sustainability. This approach has to be understood, and from the lens of sustainability, when we talk about that, we are talking about lifelong learning and bringing sustainability. It is about participation at different level, implementation process. So the process has to be to understand those in holistic approach, to understand those holistic approach and community participation. That's why we have these 4 basic units. It doesn't mean that it is not. It is on. We have to stick only on those 3 major approaches. It's not that, but this is the basic foundation, right? So And coming to, after understanding this, then we know that education is important, ethical value, we have to understand, need to understand ethical value, and what kind of technology has to be, then implement, that we have to use. So those can be looked into the fourth block. When we talk about sustainability, when we talk about sustainable development, when we talk about natural resource management, it is about ecology, right? When we are talking good ecology, it is for a good economics. When we are talking about ecology or good economics, we should not forget ethics. When you talk about ethics, it's not about our social ethics. It is about our ethical response to other species also, other components of the ecosystem. Right. So when we know that when we talk about development, when we talk about broad inclusive development, we need a lot of manpower development. That's we call the human resource development. When we are developing our human resources, we have to look all these things from the lens of sustainability. That's the objective of this block 4. Now in block 1, what we learn? We learn about the basic of sustainable development, principle of sustainability science, then approaches and ethical values. Then second, what we learn is that the sustainable development has three basic dimensions, or we call it a pillar. First pillar is it is nature, environment that gives you food, shelter, and fiber. What diba? Right? Clothes, kapra makan, roti makan, right? In Hindi. So, when we are trying to learn this sustainable design, the second step is we know that there are three dimensions. So, first dimension we have to look, that is first pillar is that natural resource, ecosystem and natural resources. So, in this block 2, that course 2, we are going to learn about, you may be from different background. Here we are going to learn about the basic concept of ecosystem and natural resources, right? Where we are going to talk about what are its values. It is not about your quantitative value, it is about qualitative value also, right? So it also have 4 blocks. The block 1 entirely we are going to those from biological background. We are going to relearn. Even from other background also, we are going to, because these are the basics which we have already learned up to 12 plus 2, even up to high school level, we learn about ecosystem and biodiversity. Here we are going to learn again what is the latest development, what we have done in the last 50 years with latest data about the concept of ecosystem, about what is happening with our biodiversity, where we're having any ethics towards other organism or not, what we have done towards those biodiversity, then what are the exact status of biodiversity nowadays, right? And then what are the conservation strategy? So that's part of your biodiversity life. Like what about non-living component? They also play an important. If those soil and the water are not properly managed, and then only that has direct impact to the living organism. That's what we're going to learn in block 2. And block 3 is the output of non-living component. What we are talking about, resources. We need to understand resources from the lens of sustainability. When we learn those concepts, we have a clear understanding of that concept of resources of different kind, then only we will be able to understand the value of all resources. When you understand the value of resources, then you yourself, without others' influence, then you yourself reorient yourself towards sustainability. Then, of course, the block 4 is on agrobiodiversity. Sometimes we are talking about the farmers, we are talking about vegetables, we are talking about the cereals, but we never got about what is the status nowadays. Right, that needs to be understood from different angles. What it has given to the society, what is its contribution towards the conserving the natural resources, towards maintaining the sustainability of a system. That's we are going to look into this block 4, right? After having understanding about the first pillar of sustainable development, that is environment, ecology, right? The second pillar is it is society we use. So we need to understand those our social structure, cultural system across the world that needs to be looked from the lens of eco-philosophy, from the lens of eco-cosmology. That's we're going to learn. That's why we have block 1. We're going to learn about culture, society, and environment from the lens of human ecology, how human-environment relationship is changing from the last few centuries. You say, for example, with the growth of human civilization, what was our relation in that time? This understanding of those human history, of its relation with the natural resources, will remind us what we have to do, what we are supposed to do, what we are not supposed to do. Then, we know that the changes in society, social structure is directly related with your resources available. In the same time, the available resources has direct impact into changing that society structure. That we are going to study in this block 2, social change, and bringing on the concept of environmentalism, then impact on development. When we talk about sustainability, in particular, natural resources sustainability, we know that culture play an important role. And that's we are going to learn through this block 3, indigenous knowledge system. Right. Then block 4, we are going to look into, because we know that our social structure is here, social cultural system is there. We know that because of all these things, there's interrelation. Because of our development activities, degradation is happening, sustainability issues are coming up. Whether we have to stop it? No. We have to go in different pathways where it considers about the harmonious relations, about nature, society, interaction, which we are going to learn in this 4 unit, the equity principle. Even among human society also, we are not equally distributed the resources, and what we can do, and what has to do, what is not to do from ethical point of view, from different conventional norms and etc. and so on. From that perspective, we are going to look into this unit. Then, this nature-society interaction is through the medium economics, right? We're talking about economic growth. We're talking about industrialization, right? This is for economy. It is about monetary value. So, in short, we can say that our nature-society interaction, your interaction with natural resources and society is for this medium of economics. So, what has happened? In that, we are looking only that economic growth. We are not bothering about that ethical value of the resources, living organisms. We are not bothering about other member of society. Means in the same society also, we are not bothering about other underprivileged group of society. Right. So this is because of what? Because of not understanding the economy properly. So that needs to be understood from the lens of ecology. So these also have 4 blocks. In the first block, we are going to look into the relation between ecology, environment, and sustainability. The point is that where we need to look into what conventional economists, their understanding of growth, what was that? Why we need to bring, or why we need to change a different direction from that. That's what we're talking about ecological economics. So in block 2, we are looking towards resource and economy, that talk about different economic theories of renewable and non-renewable resources, and a way of that resource exploitation. And we are going to talk about what we are talking about, this globalization, whether globalization has impact, what are benefit and limitation, all these things, how to go about it. Then coming into India is a developing country, and we are looking towards the direction of developed country. At the same time, our issues is that we have hotspots of the number of hotspots of biodiversity. We have diversity in the landform. We have diverse geographical diversity. Geographical diversity that needs to be looked. Those environmental issues needs to be looked from the ecological economic point of view. Here, when you use the word environmental issues, you may be thinking in different direction, but here we are going to look from the lens of ecological economics. And of course, finally, the gap of understanding by the economist and ecology, that was the gaps. That was one of the reasons where there is environmental degradation. Because of that environmental degradation, then it brings the issues of sustainability. Because of that issues, we have social inequalities over there. So there is an understanding of how to understand the value of ecosystem, the direct and indirect value of ecosystem, in terms of monetary or economic value of ecosystem or economic value of ecology. That we are going to learn in this block 4. This course 5, we have an understanding of the third basic pillar of sustainable development. Now the point is, if you look into the traditional system also, we have unwritten norms, and that conventional, what we can say, informal institution that maintain, that safeguard the natural resources. That needs to be relooked. The point, what I'm saying is that when we are talking about this different dimensions of sustainable development, what we're talking about exploitation of resources, what we're talking about utilization of resources, it is under, if you look back to the human history, it is under that informal system. Was one of the institution that maintain that. In the same way, in modern world, we have to understand how institutions play an important role in bringing sustainable development. That's we are going to look into three blocks. First block will talk about institutional mechanism, where we're going to talk about different concept of institution and organization. Then governance, of course, governance play an important role in bringing different policy makers or community participation and implementation of project, and that needs to be looked. Then we have different policy tools, which we are going to look in a brief about available policy tools in our legal system, right? That is what we're going to study in that course 15. When we have an understanding about basic concept of sustainability science, sustainable development, followed by 3 major pillars, and we have also learned about the 4 pillars, its relation to maintain sustainable development, right? So the point comes, before the issues of sustainable development came up, we know that every nation at different level, they implemented different policy programs for their economic growth, right? But among those, few of the policies program, without knowingly or unknowingly, that was successfully implemented, and that those projects can be looked from the lens of sustainable development, available those models as a models. So that we are going to look into that. When we talk about sustainable development models, infrastructure is important. This is because of the unequal distribution of infrastructure. Inequalities happening among the society, different section of the society. So what kind of infrastructures needs to be developed when we are talking about sustainable development, right? So in that, what are the available approaches, tools, and techniques available in different across the world that we are going to look into? In context of India, we have good experience as well as bad experience on consequence of good experience of green revolution, where Professor Swaminathan proposed another model of revolution that we call evergreen revolution. That's we are going to look into that. That's looking into, we can say, if you look in global context, when we are talking about India, it's a local issues as a case study. We need to look into three major that we can say the agroclimatic. We can say agroclimatic zones needs to be studied. One is, mountain area. What kind of models can be implemented in mountain area to improve their livelihood? When we say that improve the livelihood means it is going towards the direction of achieving sustainable development. Then when we look into, we have a long coastline area, right? The coastal communities' livelihood needs to be understood, and what kind of model we can be implemented, bringing sustainable development that have inclusive growth. Then the same way, culture play an important role. Few corners of the country, like Northeast India, their way of protecting the nature is different. Such kind of traditional models needs to be studied. That's why cultural landscape-based sustainable development models we are going to study in this block, right? Then we learned during the last 6 courses, we learned some of the basic about the approaches of and some of the case study of sustainable development, right? Under the principle of sustainable science. Whenever we are going to implement something or we are going to achieve something, and in the same time when we are trying to understand these issues, several challenges is over here, like climate change. Those issues and challenges needs to be understood from the lens of sustainable development, and few of them, not limited to these, but for the sake of this course, we are picking up only few major issues like climate change, then issues of overpopulation, then issues of energy crisis, which are directly related, then urbanization, waste generation. That's we are going to study as a challenges, like then those challenges needs to be understand at the micro level, individual level. That's why we are going to look at health, nutrition, environment, which in most of the courses, and when we are trying to understand those issues, we always look into macro level, right? We need to look into micro level. That's principle that we are going to look into this block 3 of course 7. Of course, what are the threats we are having in bringing sustainability, like land degradation, desertification, disaster, biodiversity. They are going to look into that, right? Then after having the basic understanding of the principle of sustainability science, sustainable development in different theory courses, now it is time to, because understand, implement or analyze your understanding of those principles, what they will learn in the 7 courses in your own way by developing a project with, discussion with one of the mentors. So the objective of this course at MSDP01 of the project is, as I told you, it is not a question of earning a piece of paper or as a degree. It is about practicing it. So we need to apply our understanding, analyze our understanding, so the project gives a space to enhance your analytical capability and leadership skill. And it's followed by teaching learning process, where that will have differentiation, and next session Dr. Diksha will talk on that. So this is what exactly the basic foundation of our sustainability science, postgraduate diploma in sustainability science. I'm sure with this you will be able to understand the holistic framework of sustainability science, this postgraduate diploma in sustainability science. Now I am opening this session for discussion.
Can you see the questions written in the chat box, please?
Yeah. Kajal, see, if you are for online class, online student, you just log in there. For ODL student, especially ODL student, Vyas portal is over there. You will get everything. What is a blog? What is a unit? Rajendra Singh, please look into our course material. You will find out that Okay.